ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ESO Cast, your Elder Scrolls Online podcast. Take two, because we tried it and it failed. But I think we're up. Do we look good, Jesse? Can you tell on your end?
Yes, it looks fine.
Okay, good. It's working.
I feel bad for everyone because it might have been the best 3 minutes we ever recorded, ever.
It was, actually.
It was the best.
It was the best song you would have ever heard. Tenacious D.
Now it's lost to time.
No, okay. Alright, well, it is Friday, February the 22nd, 2013. Once again, welcome back to your Elder Scrolls Online podcast. My name is Dennis Force Duhamel, joined by Jesse Cox. And since we have things up and working, I'm just going to jump right into it. Fingers crossed that nothing fails again. So, once again, we missed last week, unfortunately. I had some stuff come up, wasn't able to do the cast, but since there wasn't too much to talk about, we're going to sort of recoup that lost time and try to cover all those things in this episode. First of which, in news, I'd like to mention that, as we discussed in a prior episode, they were very close. The Elder Scrolls Online Facebook page was nearing the 1 million like mark, and it looks like they have finally hit it. And in celebration, they released a video as well, just sort of as a thank you, everyone, for liking the Facebook page. Thanks for spreading the word of the Elder Scrolls Online. Here's a video of all of the developers cheering and thanking you. Which, yeah, you know, it was interesting, but it would have been nice to have been gameplay, right, Jesse? That would have been great.
Yeah, it's nice seeing the smiling faces of all the developers and recognizing people that I met, but really, I and everyone else on the internet thought that 1 million subs, when they said we have something special to show you, it was legitimately something like we, the gamer, would consider special.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice. Thank you guys for showing how much, they love us for their support, but you can show us that by showing us something awesome from the game.
Yeah, and something that I just wanted to touch on about that, we actually there it's pretty interesting because there was a whole bunch of people sort of pulling a Where's Waldo thing where they were going through this frame by frame and looking for any bit of footage that they could glean from the screens of some of the people sitting at their work desks.
I didn't even think about that. Maybe that was like a hidden thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a little bit of something, like a few of the things show some like there's you can see the stamina and magicka bar and all that stuff, and I think there was a little bit of character models also displayed. And the cool thing too is you get to see these guys obviously really passionate about what they do. They're really into this. I really like, actually, something that really it just popped up there that I really enjoy is they show the guys in the sound room sort of making the sound for chainmail, people running with chainmail and stuff. And that's just something that I'm personally interested in, doing this whole YouTube video thing and broadcasting, and I am failing at working on soundproofing my office, so I've been putting up blankets on the walls. And let me ask you, Jesse, do you have any sort of special things going on? Do you have any of the soundproofing panels? Because I need something.
I do. My room is soundproofed. This is the perfect place to murder someone.
It's great.
There is soundproofing all over the walls. There is very little. The only reason why there's an echo is I have a door that I just leave open. If I were to close it, this room would be completely soundproof.
Yeah, that's what I need. Ugh.
That's where I take people to kill them.
So jelly.
And on the screen right now, I think it might have just passed, is my favorite guy in the entire...
The Lore Master.
Dude is the best.
Yeah.
He has the single best voice of anyone in any business capacity anywhere.
I agree. But yeah, I mean, once again, it was good to see this. It was good to see that they're passionate. You see a whole bunch of guys obviously really into gaming, some various gaming sweatshirts. I think I saw a guy with like a Skyrim sweatshirt, and I also think I saw a Mass Effect N7 shirt as well, which was really cool. But obviously, it's good to see that they're passionate about this and that they're sharing their thanks for reaching the 1 million likes. I guess the one thing that is a little game related, though, that they did show us is they gave us some concept art for some heavy armor that might be in the game, specifically taking a look at armor pieces for the High Elf, Nord, and Breton, which I'll be throwing up right here. So this was kind of neat. I mean, it is just concept art, but it's kind of neat to see the direction that they're going in with this. And I think everything really... this is further evidence that they're really sticking true to the Elder Scrolls series. Like, even without looking at the nameplates below, you can get the feeling the far left one, that looks really elven, and then obviously the Nord one with the little horns and all of that. So I think they're doing a good job of continuing to try to stick to the Elder Scrolls roots just by the concept art designs here. So this was neat. I was glad to see that. I don't know if you had taken a look at that as well, Jesse, but
Yeah, I've been following the concept art, but I'm one of those people who I know the difference between, like, I get let down very easily or disappointed very easily, whatever it is, when it comes to the fact that concept art always looks gorgeous. It's about transitioning that art into the game and doing it correctly, because there's a lot of games with the concept art, you're like, holy crap, that's awesome. And then you see it in the game and it's like pixelated and
not so awesome.
Yeah. And so I take it with a grain of salt. I know that it looks cool, and I'm really excited, especially about all like the Nord armors, and I'm hoping maybe you can wear that on different characters. I think that might be nice, but I don't know how they plan on doing that. But
well, do you mean in terms of like no matter what like sort of class you roll, being able to wear that regardless, or do you mean only Nords can wear that?
No, I mean like if the cooler looking Nord armor is only relegated to that faction.
I don't know. I would say no if I were to guess, but who knows? Maybe, or even that might even be a good thing though if they were to do something very specific. Like if you want the best looking Nord armor, you're gonna have to play as a Nord to get that.
Like that kind of stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Or not even a Nord, but just part of that faction.
Right. Gotcha.
So you have to be a dark elf or something like that, yeah.
Right. Yeah, that'll be interesting to know. Again, one of those further things that we're just sort of going to have to wait. The really good thing is I'm really excited. I just started going into our next thing here. We're actually going to be talking about, they announced the food truck tour that's taking place. And the reason this is interesting is it's not because everyone loves food trucks, although I'm sure some of you
I don't know. Food trucks are amazing. In LA, that's where you get the best food.
I was going to say, I've been out to LA a few times for various things like BlizzCon and other conventions out there, but food trucks are not a thing here in the Northeast.
I can imagine.
There's not a lot of food trucks.
Yeah, they could only operate like 5 months out of the year.
Right,
Here they can stay open all the time, and it's a really cool concept, I'll give it that.
I'm still a little weirded out, though, by getting food out of the back of a truck. I don't know.
I've had the best Indian food I've ever had in my entire life out of the back of a truck.
Out of the back of a truck? All right.
I'm just saying.
I'll take your word for it. So yes, they're going to be doing a food truck tour, and the reason this is exciting is not only because of the delicious Indian food that they may be serving for Jesse, but also because this is meant to just coincide with the upcoming convention tour that they'll be doing, and obviously what that is them going through the various conventions like PAX, and they're going to be traveling to universities as well to show off the game. So with this, while they're going here to show off the game and sort of start to build the hype for its eventual release this year, fingers crossed, they're going to be having this little food truck thing. Will they be giving away food and also giving away some gear and stuff? They'll be doing like contests. I'm sure it'll just be like t-shirts and hats or beanies or whatever. But still, it's still a nice little extra there. I don't see many other companies bringing food trucks with their convention tour, and it's also trying to help spread the word of the game.
Wow.
But what was that, Jesse?
No, I said wow. I feel bad for them because they are going to be. I'll be at PAX East, E3, and PAX Prime, and then they're going to be in LA pretty much 2 other times. So I have a feeling I'll harass them a great deal.
I'm actually personally I am hoping to get to PAX East just because it's relatively close for me. It's only Boston is only like a 4-hour drive from here, so at the very least I do hope to attend that. And I think that'll be pretty fun. It'll be interesting, to see what they serve on the food truck. I wonder if they're gonna have to, right? They're gonna do like Elder Scrolls themed stuff, or
I think we're assuming that even in my wildest dreams, I wish that was the case, where there was just like sticky buns and things like that.
Skooma.
Like,
they're gonna serve skooma.
Skooma. Yes, like they have to have a drink called skooma or something like that.
Come on,
right?
why not?
Some kind of like alcoholic beverage, even though they can't. I know that doesn't exist, but I'm almost willing to say that perhaps we're looking at this the wrong way, and it might be a food truck, but they just don't serve food. There's a lot of like kitschy hipster things like that, where it's like, yeah, man, it's a food truck, except we give you T-shirts out of it or something like that.
Well, they do say tasty treats, so there will be something consumable.
We need buns. Is what I'm saying. Just buns.
I completely agree. I would see that as a major failure on their part.
If it's not there.
If buns were not included.
If buns are not there, I will be let down.
Yeah, so, but for me, again, the most exciting part about all this is, hey, man, I mean, they're planning on going to a lot of conventions. Like, they're really going to start hyping it up in the coming months. It looks like this is all going to start in March, which March 10th is actually, they're going to SXSW 2013 in Austin, Texas.
Oh, wow.
And then it goes from there all the way to October, at which point they're going to the University of California, Berkeley. So I wonder how telling that is, though.
Well, that is interesting because South by Southwest, the first thing you mentioned, that's more of a music event.
They said they put a note on that. Did you see there was this girl who did this acoustic Dovahkiin Skyrim song posted on YouTube? It was really, really big. I don't know.
Yeah, they had her, and I know Lindsey Sterling did some stuff, and that's how she got really, really big. Is that and her Zelda thing she did? Yeah, but again, South by Southwest I don't think is the people who are going to make Skyrim / Elder Scrolls things. What I think is it might be because it's a big general event. Like, it's one of the biggest events, and Austin is, like, has a nerd culture there, and I feel like they assume there's going to be like a nerdy kind of undercurrent, because it's very South by Southwest is very, like, here's a band you've never heard of before, hipsterish.
Right.
And so maybe they want to get the word out there. I don't know why. I mean, it's an event. I'm not saying that if you have time, I would say go to South by Southwest. It's awesome.
Yeah,
but I just
fun.
don't.
Flannel
I
and
wonder
lattes.
what the reasoning is. Yeah. But I guess, but universities. I mean, I guess it's along those lines.
Right.
If you're trying to make your game hip and appeal to a older crowd, because they aren't going to like high schools, and they're going to universities. So I think that's a sign of what they're looking for to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I agree. And I mean, another thing too to keep in mind is that music could just, I mean, obviously, you know, again, South by Southwest, it's a big music thing. So maybe they'll be focusing specifically on Elder Scrolls, like the official soundtrack. Maybe they'll reveal something there for that, and whatever, people can enjoy it, you know.
Look at you coming up with reasonable answers.
Who would have thought? So yeah, the food truck tour, once again, this is going to be starting on March 10th, going all the way to October 4th. And I did want to just say, though, if they're planning a convention tour to October 1st, does that mean we can pull the assumption that the game won't be released till after that? Convention tours post-launch? Maybe they would be. I mean, I guess that's not too unreasonable that they would want to continue to promote it post-launch. So,
well, so you're assuming that it'll, no matter what, it'll be after October. I would agree with that. But
yeah, I guess that seems reasonable.
I would assume way after that. I would assume that's probably when we'll see maybe like our first open beta stuff. Maybe October when the tours end. Because here's my thought process. And
wait, you think open beta is not going to be till then?
Yeah, I think it'll be closed beta. Closed beta will last through the summer, and open beta will be then. And here's my reasoning. As much as I love like hype and things like that, them hyping it too early is pointless.
Yeah.
And that's what betas have become. Betas are hype machines now.
Right.
And there's having an open beta that early is ludicrous. I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah, I guess you're right too. And
having a closed beta is only a few select people are in it, so then those are the hype people. And so then, like, idiots like us come on here, and we're like, oh my god, there was this time we were fighting this monster, it was great. And everyone else who doesn't have access is like, oh my god, I wish I could see that. And then when they finally get access, that's when the hype grows. Wow. If I'm wrong, which we are very rarely wrong, we called a lot of things on our previous incarnations of this podcast, by the way. By the way.
Can we just briefly talk about Diablo 3 on the PlayStation? Because we didn't get to talk about that yesterday.
I just want to point out, it has nothing to do with the topic of Elder Scrolls, but on our old run-up to Diablo 3 podcast, which was very similar to the format of this one, we called that it was going to be a console thing because they changed it so much.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, you probably should listen to us because we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're not stupid. Okay, he's not stupid.
You're not stupid, Jesse.
Oh, thanks.
You're
You
extravagant.
and my mom agree.
All right, so yeah, I mean it's interesting, and I think the other thing for us to keep in mind too is how they plan to structure the beta early on. Something I wasn't initially thinking about. It's going to just be these little like beta moments, like there'll be a beta weekend, like little beta events for a few days, and then they'll probably take like a couple weeks off and then do another beta event. So I guess it's not that far fetched that we won't be seeing open beta whenever that does occur till more likely towards the end of the year. So. Yeah, that's...
Plus, you have to consider other... I mean, one of the things you have to consider talking about open beta is release dates. And release dates for MMOs, they do not like to compete. In fact, they like to snipe people from other games. So, something that you'll see a lot, for example, is like World of Warcraft releases an expansion, and then a month later, another game comes out, or vice versa. So they're like, oh yeah, you had a month with that new thing. Well, that sounds great. Try this again, or stuff like that. So you would assume that if you found a schedule of like proposed release dates for games, it would fit in a month after something else. So you would see this, like, let's say there's a big expansion. I think Star Wars has an expansion coming out. Imagine their expansion came out. You would put the release of this game a month later. Because, like, oh, you had your time with that thing. Well, now we're going to show you something even better.
Yeah, it makes me wonder too, though, if they are planning on releasing this game like after October. So what are we thinking, like November or something? November.
Oh, I would say if I was a betting man, because since we don't see much, I don't know that we can say it'll be this year. Because we don't. I mean, what they're showing us is the same things. And as you mentioned, they're being very careful about what to share.
Yeah.
And so I think it might behoove us to just say 2014 on this.
Yeah.
And just assume that's what it'll be.
So I mean, so far the official word is they're saying it's going to be this year, but that's their official word, but obviously that's subject to change. So.
If imagine that's the case, then it would be end of November, beginning December.
Well, that's my concern because that's the time frame of the next console generation. So I don't know that that's going to impede on this too much, though. That this might be just a different audience, at least for a good portion of it. And I don't think they have any console plans. At least they haven't said anything. So. No, we'll see. We'll see. Next thing I wanted to talk about is there is an Ask Us Anything that went up where they just basically respond to some questions from the community, and there was a few things that I thought were fairly interesting that I wanted to touch on here. The first one is they talked about the inventory within the game and a sort of sorting system that they're going to have. So the way the inventory is going to work is it will be based on slots, but has a list style much like the inventory you saw in Oblivion and Skyrim. It's also going to have tabs that will allow you to view your items, or either all of them or by specific categories such as weapons or armor, and it goes into more detail saying that you could sort by the value or how recently you picked up an item, and removing items would also be very simple. So it's going to be slots. You know, it's going to be a basic slot base. I've got a chess piece. I'll pop that into one slot, and being able to sort by all these different values that's a great thing. I think that's a fantastic feature. I think that's something that more and more games are trying to do. I don't remember. Did Guild Wars 2 have a sorting system? Do you remember? I think they did.
Guild Wars 2 has a few different sorting systems, yeah.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it'll be good. I think that's a great thing to have. I think it's a lot better than trying to clumsily move through your items every single time you want to, try to find something. Especially if there's a lot of like trash that we're going to be picking up in the game. If there is a lot of that, being able to have even a completely separate tab for that would be fantastic. In fact, I think
that's one of the things I think they need to, especially when it comes to item management, they need to focus on trash to loot ratio, because that's one of the things that Guild Wars 2 is. It is a giant pain in the ass sometimes, because in order to get more inventory space, you have to pay for it. And so the big problem is that if you have the biggest bags you can, but you haven't paid for more inventory space, your bags fill with useless garbage very quickly.
Right.
And yeah, sure, you have a one-button sell that you can do when you go back to, some vendor, but it's still a pain in the ass. And it makes you feel like, why? I just want to, loot all real quick and move on with my day. I don't want to have to keep looking at the loot every time, but now that's what I have to do in order to keep my inventory at least clean from just pointless items. So,
yeah, I mean, I know that like trash items sort of have their place. It's the idea of, you're picking up garbage all the time, and so that when you actually get something, it's cool. It's a much better situation. You're much more excited about it. But it definitely can get tedious, so being able to easily manage that through a sorting system is a good thing. Is definitely I mean, even having like an extra bag that's just for trash or something would be kind of neat.
Honestly, I would just settle for a thing that was, instead of like pick up all, it was pick up all but gray items or whatever. That would be just as good. I don't know why that doesn't exist yet in a game.
Yeah, that would be.
At end game, that seems like the thing you would always click, because it's pointless. Because the money is pointless. Because in the beginning, sure, okay, yes, you need those few coins, but at the end, it's a pointless thing to have, and still end game stuff drops it. Yeah. Always in every game. I don't know why, but it's stupid.
I think the other thing too is that those items are typically so invaluable, like they're literally worth almost nothing, that it is completely pointless really to pick them up. So yeah,
right. And there isn't an item weight issue in this game, so we're not talking about like that aspect of it. They aren't, you don't have to worry about like, I picked up 12 brooms but now I can't carry this sword. Like, that's not an issue. The brooms are just pointless to pick up, unless you can use them as a weapon in some way, which would be awesome. I'm just saying, guys. Epic broom. Big purple epic broom. Get on it.
Broom mount. Do it. Halloween
every
special.
Game has a broom. Every game has a broom mount.
I know.
you want something else. You want a giant spider warlock that you can mount. That's what you want. You just said that spider chick? You can mount her in Elder Scrolls. Go. Go. Done.
Something else that they mentioned, I did not realize that they planned to do this all the way, but in terms of voice acting, when asked, basically someone was saying, I don't like reading in MMOs. Will there be voice acting? And the response was that Elder Scrolls Online will be fully voice acted. You will hear every NPC. It goes on to say that there will still be lore books in the game if you do want to read through them, sort of like we've seen in other Elder Scrolls games, but my takeaway from this is that they plan to fully voice act like all quest dialogue and all important stuff, which I'm kind of nervous about.
I hope by fully voice acted, they mean like WoW levels of fully voice acted.
Like chatter, hello, how are you, sort of thing.
Well, yeah, the chatter, but also like major events are voice acted. But I think one of the things that they need to consider, and this is just something that, half the MMO community feels, and I'm not one of them, but I know most people, when they play an MMO, half of them don't even give a damn about the quest. They get an objective and they go do it.
Yeah.
And so you are wasting a lot of time and energy putting fully voiced Star Wars, for example. I loved the story. I thought the story was one of the best things about the game. Problem is, I would again say half the people did skip through the entire thing. I don't care what you have to say. I want to make a stupid selection. Let's move on. I want to get back to killing stuff. And that's just a thing. And it slowed down the game for a lot of people. So I would say, honestly, what they need to do is they need to have the WoW level where it's certain things are voiced and most normal stuff isn't, where you can read it on your own, do it on your own, and then I would change it so every book is read by the lore master. So rather than having to read the books, you press a button and he just reads them to you, because the guy's a freaking boss. And I think that would work better.
Yeah.
But also, if they need two guys to sit in a town and randomly discuss things, we are available.
I'll do it. And you bring up a good point, and that's not even what my initial concern was, but that is true. So many people in an MMO, because of the social aspect, they feel like, I just want to get to the end as fast as possible. I want to beat all these other people. That's one of the, I think, big differences between an MMO and a strictly single-player game, and I think that's something that a lot of Elder Scrolls fans are going to maybe experience for the first time if they haven't played MMOs in the past. Lots of people just want to blitz through content and get as powerful as as possible faster than everyone else. And part of that is skipping all this dialogue. So obviously it'd be a waste, but the other concern, and back to what Jesse was talking about, Star Wars The Old Republic, I too really, really love that game, but I think a big part of the reason that it failed like it did and went free to play as early as it did is because they spent so much money on voice acting, and where they could have thrown that development money towards the end game. And like that's a concern. So that's one of the main reasons I'm like, I hope they don't mean, when they say fully voice acted, I hope they don't mean fully like Star Wars The Old Republic fully, but as Jesse said,
I agree. Yeah,
because that'd be a lot of money, and that'd be a lot of money that could have been put to better use, because lots of people are going to skip it because it's an MMO. But I
think WoW WoW has that down perfectly when it comes to the voice acting / reading ratio. If it's something important, you get a voice. Mm-hmm. If it's something it's just a normal quest, it's a normal quest, and you can read it yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that is what they should focus on, because you're right. They spent, I think it was 50 gigs worth of voice dialogue, and they hired some of the best voice actors in the world to do Star Wars. And in the end, it was not smart. Like, it was a great thing to say, like, look, we have all this stuff. This is going to be amazing. But in the end, it wasn't worth it. And going back to what you were saying about it, I feel like in the major missions, because people in the comments were saying, like, hey, you know what, we really like the story, and, you know, you might be wrong about that. You might have liked your character's personal story, but after doing the same side questy things, and the dialogue is like, oh, there's Alliance over there, and the Rebels, we have to go. Every single time, it got really old very quickly. Your main story was awesome, and it was really cool to follow along with, but the side ones are like, my daughter is trapped in a well. You can just read that 10 times faster and go and find the damn daughter.
Hey, yeah, and I don't want people to take it the wrong way. I think Jesse and I have both professed our love for the leveling experience in Star Wars The Old Republic. Like, that fully voice-acted experience, I thought I really enjoyed it. I really, really did. But it's also a lot of money, and if most of the player base isn't even going to fully enjoy it or skip most of it, that money could be put towards just making the game better overall. So I think they should try to find a balance, and I hope they haven't already voice acted everything, because we're going to sound like huge assholes if they
Look. If you're going to voice act it, just hire the woman who does all the Nord voices in Skyrim, who's like, hello there, Kingsman. I love that woman. I don't know who she is, but she is hilarious. She's just like, hello there, Kingsman. Like, hello there, Nord woman. Not like a main character. She's just like one of the normal townspeople, but she's in every Skyrim town. It's wonderful.
Could also just have Nolan North do all voices for the entire game.
I think he could do a good woman.
As if he doesn't have enough work.
They're all the same voice, and everyone's like, it's the best voice acting game ever!
All right, the next thing I wanted to briefly touch on here, I might not talk too much about this, but they did mention also that tanking, people were asking, hey, I like to play a tank-focused character, but one with light armor, is that going to be viable? The response was, generally, as a tank-focused character, you're going to want to wear heavy armor. It's going to be the most reasonable course of action because it lends itself to absorbing more damage and taking big hits. However, if you choose to increase your health to the max and carefully choose your abilities, you could build a light armor character that would last a good long time on the front line. So something interesting about tanking, you know, something that I found in other MMOs, like they talk about, hey, if you want to tank, well, you're going to want lots of hit points and lots of armor. But I found other games found ways around that with like dodging and parrying systems and stuff like that. And I don't know if it's just because this is a brief 2 to 3 sentence response, or if it's because they just don't plan to have it in the game. But it seems based on this that like finesse tanking won't be an option. It's going to be more, you punch me in the face, I take that hit, and that's how tanking will be done in this game. Have you played a tank character in MMOs, Jesse?
No, there's too much damn responsibility there. I don't do it.
I just want to sit in the back and lob fireballs at things.
Here's the thing, though. I say that, and for pretty much every MMO I've ever played, I was a healer, which is even more responsibility.
Right.
But I think I like the idea that I decide whether I live or die. Like I have that in my hands. I couldn't handle being a tank and relying on other people to keep me alive.
It can be frustrating. I've tanked in a few
mind.
MMOs, and that can be, because there's a lot of people who are really bad at their MMO jobs.
That's why the majority of people play as some type of DPS.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So I guess just the point I wanted to get across is, based on that response, it seems like tanking will be the basic standing here, absorbing damage, heavy armor is ideal, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be focusing on like a finesse style tanking, a dodging, parrying sort of character. But again, that's just a brief response, so don't extrapolate too much.
But we don't know that. Yeah, we don't know that.
Right. And the last thing I wanted to quickly mention from the Ask Me Anything article was they talked about spell casting. Someone was asking, okay, so if I'm casting spells, can I equip them individually to my left and my right hand like I did in Skyrim? And the response to that was basically a long-winded no. They said that you can equip your weapons one hand or two hand for dual wielding. You can go weapon and shield. You can go two-handed weapon. But your abilities, casting spells, are not going to work like they did in prior games. You're not going to assign healing wave to left hand and frost shock to right hand. They're just, your spells or abilities are going to be based off your hotbar. Your weapons are based off your mouse clicks, left and right mouse button, left and right hand. So that's one of those distinctions where they're sort of deciding we're going to go more of the MMO route in terms of the casting spells, but the physical melee combat is still going to be fully mouse-based like it is in other Elder Scroll games. And I completely forgot to ask you about that because of your prior experience with the game, but evidently, yeah, that's the case. So I think that's fine. I mean, I think it's fine if they keep weapons hand-based and shields hand-based, and then just spells are going to be all your hotkeys, basically.
Yeah, that's. I assume that was the case. I only played a melee character, so clearly a magic ability wouldn't matter. But I assumed that was the case.
Yep. All right, next on, we're going to be taking a quick look at the developer question of the week. There's a new one of these every week, and this one's going to be asking us about the type of character we want to play. So I'm just going to quickly play this. We'll give it a quick listen, and then we'll respond.
Hi, my name is AJ LaSaracina, and I'm a customer support trainer working on the Elder Scrolls Online. Tamriel has many unique races, all with their strengths, triumphs, and histories. Which of the 9 available races will you choose to play as when the Elder Scrolls Online launches later on this year?
Okay, so once again, asking us which one of the races that we're going to play. I actually want to throw this question to you first, Jesse. I want to see which one that you are interested in playing the most.
I mean,
do you have a set preference? Are you one of those people like, I am this character in the Elder Scrolls universe?
No. I mean, I like the fact that if I played an orc male, I would get like about 1,000 wives, which seems pretty great.
That's a good deal.
Right? Basically, like, one man of the clan is how it works. But I mean, I feel like I want to try something. This might be the first game I do something magey in, so I'm thinking some type of elf, either dark or high. I don't know. I haven't decided yet, but I'm definitely want to try an elf character, or not an elf character, but like a magic using character this time around. Just because I haven't done that ever before. Although I like how in a game where it's obviously more focused on the right and left click mouse buttons for like attacking, I'm like, I'm gonna do the one that doesn't involve any of that. I just realized that's kind of silly. I don't know. I guess I'm gonna try something different.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I'm not so attached to any individual character race that I'm gonna let that determine. The big thing for me, it's an MMO. The social aspect is huge, so it's gonna sort of come down to what do my friends play. You know, the people that I'm gonna be playing this game with, what are they playing? Because I'm gonna want to be in that alliance. So that's essentially going to determine it. And I also I'm a big fan in competitive games. So you know, the PvP part of this game, I'm a big fan of being the underdog. I really like going into situations outmatched and winning because it just reaffirms that I'm the greatest player in the world. But but no, like that's something I generally like. So the idea that the Ebonheart Pact, in my eyes, and I think there's a general consensus on this, the Ebonheart Pact is probably going to be the most played of the 3 alliances.
I think so too. I thought for a second you were about to say they were going to be the underdog, and I was like, I don't know about that.
Definitely not. No, just I mean, and again, just to reiterate, we've talked about this in the past, but just because Skyrim, the Nords, like I think that's what most people are going to want to do. Like Nords and Dark Elves are like, yeah, they're cool, but if that's like the most played alliance, I want to play one of the other ones so that the population discrepancy there is going to make it so that sometimes I'm outmatched and I can go into 2-1s and stuff like that. That's my personal preference, because like I like PvP so much, and so for that reason, I'm going to probably lean towards one of the alliances that are less populated, and then once again that will be finally determined by wherever my friends go, because honestly, if my friends want to go to the Ebonheart Pact, well, that's what I'm going to do. Like, it's the point of an MMO is to play with your friends. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely the combination of Nord, Argonian, and Dark Elf is something that's going to be a faction that's filled with people.
Yeah,
filled with people. And while it also might be because it seems like the coolest one. Like, it definitely has a sort of like, we're all the rebels.
Yeah, exactly.
We all join together. We don't care about nobody. It has that kind of feel to it. I almost feel like I don't know.
Well, if you're going to be all elfy, the Aldmeri Dominion might work. And, you know, I played Skyrim as a Khajiit, so...
That's true, but I've always thought the High Elves always look like weird alien people.
They do.
And I was like, ew, I don't know if I want to... I may make just a crazy orc.
The orcs, yeah, I mean, that's also another cool one. I guess if I had to guess, I would say those might be the two. Like, I would guess Ebonheart Pact followed by Daggerfall Covenant, simply because of the orcs, and the Red Guards are sort of human as well. And then I think the least populated faction might be the Aldmeri Dominion, because the High Elves do look kind of funky.
The elves are going to be... Everyone's just going to love them.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what their character models are going to be. I wonder if they're going to go like WoW elves, like, you know, busty bouncing to a lore too.
No.
Well, there's a target audience. You know, there's going to be a target audience with these things. So I'm assuming they won't, though. That's not Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, I don't think they go that way. I mean, look, I wouldn't have a problem with it if they did, but I have more of a feeling that it will be something more adult-ish.
Yeah.
Rather than like, look, 14-year-old. Boom.
Right. Frustrated young man. Look at these pixelated women.
And I will. What?
All right, so that's pretty much all the, I guess, the important things that I wanted to talk about in the Ask Us Anything, and again, that developer question of the week. The last thing I wanted to point people to for news before we move into discussion here is there was a recent article posted on digitalspy.com just a few days ago, I guess about 5 days ago now, February 17th, was an interview with Matt Fyror. And they just talked about some Elder Scrolls Online action. They talked a little bit about sort of how they're trying to maintain the Elder Scrolls feel. They talked about things we've talked about in the past, like, you know, Skyrim's going to be generally the same, major towns and stuff like that. But there will be obviously differences because of the time difference 1,000 years prior. They also talked about beta feedback, and he mentioned that one of the biggest things with the beta is just making sure most of the systems work, like being able to log into the game and stay on the server for an extended amount of time without getting disconnected. That's going to be a big part of of their whole testing process, is people outside of the company actually logging into and playing the game. And then they touched on one more thing, just to reiterate the fact. So first-person perspective here in this game, it is going to be, as we've talked about before, it's going to be available, but without the hands. So he's just stating once again that this is not an option. In fact, he goes on to talk about things that we've discussed before, saying that one of the main reasons that they're, I guess, not focusing on this is because you need to see around you in an online RPG. And this is one of the things that we were pointing to as probably the biggest deterrent from people playing first person in an MMO, is because you need to be situationally aware. And Matt actually talks about it here, saying that The main difference here is that an online RPG, enemies can spawn in a 360-degree radius around you, so I'm assuming he's talking about respawns there, especially in PvP. So third-person mode, if you use it, will give you a far greater ability to see enemies behind you, and then he says in many situations that will make the difference between living and not surviving in a combat sequence. So, you know, you go into an Elder Scrolls game, you walk into a dungeon, you clear the guy in front of you, you walk forward, you clear the guy in front of you, you keep doing that. You're not worrying about respawns behind you, but there's going to be respawns in this game because it's an MMO. There's so many people playing, so there sort of needs to be, I guess, except for like the instanced stuff. So just reaffirming that third person is sort of the ideal way to play this game. And again, like we talked about last week, that seems pretty obvious. So
yeah, I'm trying to think of because if they're using PvP as an example, I know for a fact that we don't need that for PvP because there's plenty of games that are first person that, like Chivalry, for example, is one where you have axes and swords and stuff like that, and you run around and you don't need to look all over the place, and you can do that first person. I guess it's definitely more for enemy combat where things can respawn behind you and around you and stuff like that.
I think
I don't know.
I was just gonna say, I think like it's a good example of Chivalry, but Chivalry's I think much different because it's very slow paced, and like even if you get hit first, you can kind of turn around and start blocking for a while, and you can actually come back. Whereas I feel like in this game and most MMOs, if someone gets the drop on you, you lose for the most part.
Yeah,
but I mean, I do get your point, and maybe there'll be enough counterbalancing between the different classes and the different skill setups that people can get attacked first and still come away from it. But yeah, there wasn't too many new things discussed here. He also talked about encouraging teamwork in the game. Basically, they're going to be employing a Guild Wars style system where even if someone is attacking something, if you help them, you get full XP, which leads me to believe that the optimal way to play this game, if you were trying to, say, level fast, power grind or whatever, would be to play in a group, because if you get the same experience no matter who's there, then you can just mow through people with the more people that you have, and you're going to level up a lot faster. So sort of encouraging teamwork as a result of that. But yeah, nothing too new. Just wanted to retouch on a few of those things. Discussed. Let me ask you, Jesse. Do you have? I mean, I know it's really early, but do you have any idea of how you plan to play this game? Is this going to be something that you're going to try to take it on as a single player experience, or are you going to be playing with a group?
Oh, with a group.
Yeah.
I don't understand why people would try to do it in MMO as a single player experience. You're missing 90% of the game.
Yeah. And that's sort of like the interesting dichotomy that we're going to be seeing in this game, though, isn't it? Because it's based on a largely single player franchise, so there's going to be this big population that's really just all about the single player, but then the generally MMO players will be like, that doesn't make any sense. I can level up 3 times as fast. I get social connections. I'm going to roll you over in PvP. All those things.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that works, because I think that's what they said they were trying to go for, is if you want to play it by yourself, Elder Scrolls style, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess we'll find out real quick, won't we?
Yeah, but just for example, just taking from that article where he said that, if you see someone fighting an enemy, a monster, and you attack it as well, you both get full XP. If that's the case, then you're going to level infinitely faster when you play with people. So that alone sort of encourages, for the people who want to level as fast as possible, that encourages group play. So, and that's a good thing in my eyes. I'm more than happy with that, because I too plan to play with people, plan to play with friends that I've played MMOs with in the past, and if we can level up faster playing together, then fantastic. That's a good way to do it. Okay, well, we're gonna finish things up here with a little discussion point. I wanted to talk about the Holy Trinity And by the Holy Trinity, I'm talking about DPS, tanks, and healers. This is a system that a majority of MMOs put in place to one degree or another. Sometimes they try to bend the lines between the two. But the reason we're bringing this up is actually from an article, just to give credit here, an article that was posted on the Shadowmare, an Elder Scrolls Online fan site. And he talks about the Holy Trinity and says, is this a good thing? Is this a thing that we need in the game? Or can we have characters that are supposed to be like all purpose? Now, obviously, in this game, we've been informed that you're going to be able to play the character the way that you want, but there are still classes that are going to be sort of acting as guidelines, or at least starting points, and then from there you can make your decisions as you level up and you spec down the various trees and things of that nature. But, are there going to be tanks, healers, and DPS? Well, in essence, it seems like yes, like you can put on a lot of armor, and if you start off as a tanky focused character, I don't know if was the Dragon Knight, was he tanky or was he more of a DPS? Is that the one that you played?
Yeah, he, judging by the abilities, he had a, excuse me, he had a pool that pulled you to him, he had a bash, and he had a slam. So, I would assume pulling people to him would mean that he could take the hits of pulling enemies right next to him. I don't know if that means he's a tank, but I know that means he can hold his own.
Yeah, and that's also going to be how you spec from there. The type of armor that you have equipped and everything like that is going to really determine how tanky you're going to be. But I guess the discussion point that I wanted to bring up is, we look at MMOs that sort of embrace the Holy Trinity, and then we look at ones that don't. And for example, a game that doesn't embrace the Holy Trinity would be Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 is a game that, every character had a heal. They had different abilities attached to it, but characters, you could just sort of play how you had these roles, but every character was damage dealing and every character could sustain themselves. And so in that game, I think one of the problems that I had, especially playing through and going through some of the early dungeons, and I heard this was a problem at endgame, although I didn't experience it myself. The problem was that it sort of turned into a Zerg fest because no one really had a role. What would end up happening is you'd fight these bosses, and since everyone is a damage dealer, everyone just sort of runs in there and just does their damage, and it's just sort of Zerging, and no one's set into these distinct roles. What's your feeling on that?
Well, I feel like now at this point, I don't like do dungeons or anything in Guild Wars 2. I just PvP, so yeah. This is all hearsay stuff. But I have run a few dungeons now and again, and I feel like now people are at the point where they understand how the dungeons work. You're right. Early on, what it was is everyone had healing, everyone had damage, and everyone just focused on themselves. And so they'd run in at a boss, and this is why I hated the dungeons when I played it originally, and still to this day I'm a little turned off by them, was the fact that everyone would run at a boss, and sometimes the best strategy, because no one could really heal anybody, because no one buffed their healing, they had heal spells, but they were really weak. Mm-hmm. The best strategy was to just die, respawn, and keep attacking the boss over and over and over again.
And that's like a Zerg fest, I mean.
Yeah, there were some bosses, I'm trying to think, like the two lovers or whatever it is in one of the first dungeons, attacking them by dying and keep attacking was how you did it. I mean, for the longest, at the beginning, that's how people beat that boss. Mm. And now they understand the different strategies and how to use the room and things like that. But also what they understand is that someone needs to be healing. And so even in a game that says, we are not going to make you be the Holy Trinity of MMOs, you kind of need to have a healer for some stuff.
Yeah.
So, in the end, you can't get away from it, no matter what. And so the question is, do you embrace that and say, look, we're going to make it easy for you guys? Or do you say, we're going to let you have free reign of it and be who you want to be, let your freak flag fly or whatever? But it's in that it leads to a lot of difficulty for the players, and it can turn people off.
Yeah. And one of the things, too, that he brought up in the article was that when you do have a game that has a holy trinity, it gives those defined roles, and it makes people feel like they're an important part of the group. Like, okay, we're going into this instance, and I need to be doing as much damage as possible, or I need to be making sure I'm healing everyone, or I need to be making sure I'm taking the aggro. Whereas if you've got, you know, at least in the early stages of when some people playing some of the dungeons, again, we're just exampling Guild Wars 2 here, but, you know, people will just be like, okay, I'm my own thing. We're all just going to run in and just sort of do whatever. Whereas this sort of sets up these, you know, these predefined things. But, I mean, there's a give and take to both, you know, because some people really hate the notion of, I want to play a guy with a sword and a shield, but I don't want to be tanking these dungeons, and be it because it's like a responsibility thing, or they find it boring, you know, they rather just be doing damage, but they want to do damage in this instance. So from what I understand with this game, with the Elder Scrolls Online, since you're going to be able to build the characters how you want to, I take that as meaning everyone will have the option of doing everything, but maybe some characters will be better at it than others. Like they'll
Well,
be.
yeah, I think that's the point. Is if you pick a mage character, you can whack things with the stick all you want and try to be like, I'm RPing a monk or whatever, but you are going to be better suited to sit in the back and throw spells.
Yeah.
However, if you want to be a battle mage and wear armor and have a sword and swing and attack, having the option to do that, I think, would be quite nice.
Yeah, and I do believe that that's sort of the way they plan on having the system. You just have to sort of wonder, and one of the things that I'm going to wonder about, and again, this won't be something and we'll see until we get into the beta and the game comes out and all of that, is those people who want to sort of take a class that's maybe initially focused on healing but try to make them damage focused. Is no one going to want to play with them because they're just not valuable? Like, are they going to be gimped relatively, or are they going to have this game balanced to the sense that you'll still be effective at what you're doing, or at least to the point of high efficiency? And I guess it also depends on the type of player that you are, because if you're not raiding high-end dungeons, let's call them, then it's not going to really matter to you, you know? If you're not with people who are super hardcore, it's not going to matter if you're not playing this specialized character in this specialized role. You can still sort of do what you want, and that also goes back to the notion of, you know, these people who are playing this game solo, they're going to play how they want, and they're not going to care what other people think about their spec. If it works for their single player campaign, then great for them, you know. Even if they're technically gimped in comparison to someone who's strictly focused damage as opposed to a healer that's also damage, it's not going to matter to them if they're not grouping with people. So I guess that's the really cool thing about this system, is that you can play your character how you want, and even if it's not optimal, if you're playing by yourself, it's not going to be a big deal for you. So.
Right, and I think that's the key. And maybe doing I don't know if they would do it this way, but maybe doing something where that off build that is what you want to do, maybe that benefits you more in a solo game. Because, say for example, if you're all DPS, then you're probably like a glass cannon and gonna get your ass handed to you. But if you sort of I'm playing by myself and I can have fun by myself, a middle of the road character might be better for you, might be the way to go in that case.
Yeah, and actually that also goes back in the Digital Spy interview with Matt Firor, when they were talking about group play and talking about incentivizing things. One of the things that they said is that the public dungeons will innately be more difficult. So the point he was getting across was that public dungeons are sort of meant for groups, but you can go into them solo, but they're meant to be done with people because they are harder than the general world that you're going to experience, or the solo campaign that you'll be playing through. So I think that might be one of those instances where if you're playing this hybrid character who can do a little bit of everything, while you may not be ideal for a group setting, if you were to go into a public dungeon, as an example, by yourself, well, maybe you could actually solo that content. You know, if that's something that you felt like doing, you'd have the tool set to be able to actually do that, and maybe it'll take you longer than if you were to play with 10 other people. But that's still an option for the people who seek that. And I think this is a really good sign, because I think this is a sign that's saying they are trying to make sure that people who want to play this game solo have that option. And by not having these distinct roles, this guy is only a tank and only a DPS and only a healer. You can play the character you want, you can play the class type that you want, and spec in a way that's going to allow you to do everything yourself, even if it is suboptimal. You can still get things done. So cool, awesome. When is beta happening? I can't wait.
We'll never know.
I can't wait. I heard soon in January. It's the end of February.
Well, that's what you get for listening to people on the internet.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up with some questions. We're going to be trying to end every cast with some community questions, and we'll be pulling these questions from the Facebook page. You can find the link right here on the top of YouTube, and you can ask on the specific Elder Scrolls Online post for the week. So let's take a quick look here. All right, here's a good question. No, that's not a good question. All right.
Okay.
Caleb asks, do you think Elder Scrolls Online will have controller enabled? Will be controller enabled? Thoughts on whether or not it would be good or bad? Did we answer this already? Or something like this already?
No, but I think we had the conversation about how the fact that there's so few buttons, it was possible. I don't know if it will be a thing, though. I assume look, it could happen if they wanted it to, because there are enough. There are only 6 actual things that you're pressing at any given time. Okay, 8. There's 6 buttons and 2 mouse buttons. So really, there's the potential to throw it on a controller. Will they? I don't know. I don't think anyone does.
Yeah, it'd be neat though. I mean, it'd be neat, and we've got games like Destiny coming up, and that's another game that I'm really looking forward to. I don't think I haven't talked with you about that, but Destiny seems really cool to me. It's going to be the next Bungie project, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's a game that has a potential to be both on consoles and on the PC, and I think we're seeing so much of that nowadays. So many ports being brought to the PC or vice versa if it was innately PC. And I think especially now with the next generation of consoles coming out, and they're going to really have a focus on being much easier to port between each other, because that's what developers want.
But the architecture, yeah, if you saw the PlayStation 4, like the build of the PlayStation 4, the architecture even more closely resembles an actual computer, like gaming computer now, rather than some crazy machine created to play CDs.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the point of that is that if they were ever to consider bringing Elder Scrolls Online to the console, because there is a console fan base of the Elder Scrolls franchise, I think that they've structured the game in a way that would be an opportunity, much like Jesse and I had talked about in our prior podcast about Diablo 3. We're like, hey, this game could be on consoles, and lo and behold, PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4, here comes Diablo 3. And so I think that this is a game that is structured in a manner with the limited skill set where it could potentially be on consoles, and so as a result, you would assume controller support would potentially be enabled as well. And I think that'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. And I also do hope that they something else that I've been really looking for in games is being able to play with people across platforms. There are a few that do it, but it's very few and far between. I hope that's something that sort of becomes more ubiquitous. Wow, my words.
Good.
More prevalent, as we move forward into the next generation. If we're seeing more, people on the PlayStation playing with people on the PC, that'd be great. Or obviously on the Xbox as well. Although I guess
I always feel like developers think that one of the two has an advantage over the other.
I think like in games like an FPS, that's definitely the case. But I don't like an RPG or. I guess it's tough to say. I personally feel like for most of the games that I play, keyboard and mouse is a superior experience.
Yeah, probably.
I think that there's just so much more precision in it. I think especially in any competitive focused game that it's definitely a much better thing. But that's just my personal opinion. Question on how do we think they're going to handle vampirism in this game, and whether or not you're going to be able to turn into vampires and stuff like that. I don't believe. I was going to say I don't think it's going to work like it has in the prior games.
But you can. Werewolf and vampire are 2 options according to the thing I was at. They didn't show us anything, but they said yes. So whatever that means.
So you're going to be able... I feel like it'll probably just be a spell that you cast, though. or like a you know, like a skill that you unlock or something, as opposed to this whole I was bit by a vampire, so I'm gonna turn into one. I don't know that it'll turn into that. And the last question coming here, asking us about role-playing, whether or not we'll be able to write like background information or story for a character, or will it be Guild Wars 2 style, where you get to do sort of a first and last name and you get to talk about their history. Did you experience any of this in character creation, Jesse, even though it was just an early build?
Nothing in the way of, like, you can write a backstory for your... I mean, you can do that online if you want. Go, you know,
pen and paper.
Plenty of places to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you could just name your character. I think I named my guy Stinky Pete and gave him a mullet, and ran around as a balding mulleted Nord, and I had a great time.
Well, that's fine.
But I don't think I gave him a backstory now.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if they do decide to do that. I mean, even, you know, in prior Elder Scroll games, you could sort of set up, you know, your constellation and things of that nature. So, you know, where you were born and things like that. So that'd be kind of cool for the people who like to RP. Otherwise, again, you just sort of write up your own history and RP it up if you feel like it. No one's stopping you. It's fine. That's going to do it. We're going to wrap up.
I mean, I might stop you.
Yeah. Jesse's going to come in and say, you will not do that. Stop trying to have... I've seen
Stop enjoying your time online.
Yeah. Unacceptable. I've seen some crazy RP things in WoW before. Walking into taverns and two people huddled in the corner, and there's just some unsavory things happening.
I think that's cute. Let them have their fun, sir. No one tells you how to have fun.
All right. Well, there's other websites for that, but anyway.
Wow.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for this week's episode of the ESO Cast, your Elder Scrolls Online podcast. Once again, my name is Dennis Duhamel. Thank you so much for joining me. Joined here by Jesse Cox. We'll be seeing you next week. Hopefully some more Elder Scrolls news to talk about. Getting excited for the beta that's coming sometime. I don't know. I think as long as it's before, like, June, I'll be happy. If we don't get beta before June, then they lied when they said soon in January. That's my opinion.
Soon.
Yeah.
To be
soon.
determined.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week.